Hello everybody, my name is Benjamin Bloom. I was on my way to Brighton to watch Ipswich, and then my phone lit up to tell me Adam Webster, a transfer that we've kind of known, that's been in the works, that seems to be attached to some other big transfers. This transfer, Webster from Bristol City over to Brighton, has finally gone through, been announced at about 12 o'clock on the opening day of the season. I guess Bristol City probably already had their ducks in a row there with what they were going to do, and this is just a formality. But huge transfer, huge fee out of the Championship, more money pouring into the division and more money pouring into Bristol City, who continue to do a very fine job of bridging the gap between themselves and the parachute teams with some very good sales. It started with Flint and then Bobby Reed last year. Lloyd Kelly went earlier in the summer for 13 million. This one's gone through undisclosed, but every report we see seems to say 22 million, which would be more than McBurney yesterday. Not quite Maddison out to Leicester or Sissoko out to Tottenham level, but huge fee for the Championship nonetheless. As an Ipswich fan, I know quite a lot about Adam Webster because we had him for 2 years. So Ipswich signed Webster from Pompey, which seems to just be like the best breeding ground for centre-halves there is at the moment, with Matt Clark also going off to Brighton and then immediately loaned to Derby. So Ipswich bring in Webster, funnily enough, incestuously enough. Clark goes the other way as part of the deal, so I'm sure Pompey have done quite well out of this down the line. Webster arrives at Ipswich with Mick McCarthy as the manager, and whatever my feelings on Mick are for being very prickly with Ipswich fans, the one thing you can say about Mick is if you're a defender and you go and play for him, you will learn how to defend properly. Mick was always very good at the system of defending, the shape, the whole low block system. So in terms of your improvement as a defensive player, a good manager to work for at a young age, especially for someone like Webster, who had already a reputation as being quite an elegant player, tall but lean, not huge big guy like an Aidan Flint or whatever who we've already mentioned, and amazing ability to kick with both feet, pass the ball short and ping long. So everybody knew there was potentially a, quote, Rolls-Royce defender there if he could get the right development. Now, we know at Ipswich that this is not a club necessarily on an upward trajectory, and players go in and they go out quite quickly. So Webster came, and I distinctly remember one of his early games. He lost John Egan, who was then playing for Brentford, for a couple of goals from corners. But I think gradually with McCarthy and with the system, he improved as a defender, and that quality he already had with the 2 feet and being able to step out and see things and the elegance and whatnot. You could see that there was a good player emerging. He did have, like a lot of players, a bad injury record at Ipswich, and he wasn't on the pitch often enough over the 2 seasons that he was there. So that was kind of the stories of his development there, and it got to the end of the 2017-18 season, and in came Bristol City for Webster. Marcus Evans, the Ipswich owner, sells, and he goes off to play for Lee Johnson. And I think, good news as an Ipswich fan, there's a nice sell-on clause in there also. So I think this is actually a key part of Webster's development, because he then moved to a team that were a bit more open and where the parts of his game that would elevate him above just a good Championship defender into potentially what he's now going to become, a Premier League defender, could be developed. We know Bristol City play front foot. We know they don't necessarily play with a playmaker. So not just a case with some centre-halves of your instruction is play it simple, play it to that guy. If you can't find him, hit the channels and play cautiously with your passing. I think he was encouraged. Whatever I joke about Lee Johnson, Streaky Lee and the David Brent things, I think this was good for Webster to work on the one hand with McCarthy for the defensive side and Johnson for a more open game, back four a little bit higher up, pressing, and encouraged to play to the fullbacks, into centre midfield, and those lovely long diagonal balls that Webster can play with either foot. And as always happens to Ipswich, an injured player goes out to Bristol City, and I think he played 47 games for Bristol City last season, and he's now reached a point where he's aged 24. He's played a whole season in the Championship for a team. Where did Bristol City finish? 8th, 9th, 7th, 8th, 9th, I think 8th possibly. Fact check me on that. Maybe Swansea were 8th. Borough, I don't know. I haven't got the table in front of me. Maybe 9th. But Bristol City were up there and in contention for the playoffs. And all the data buffs, all the metric guys now were looking at Webster, and everything he was doing on the pitch for that team was putting him in the top brackets for all the defenders. So you start to see a guy who's reaching a decent age. He's coming out really well in the metrics. He's proven Championship, worked his way through, got into a team. All of this was making him a very viable asset to be sold, and that has been the case today. Obviously, off he's gone to Brighton, where he will play with Graham Potter, who will indeed encourage him even more to be a really good passing centre half. So let's look at it from Brighton's point of view. I know they're going to have a difficult time. Potter's in there. He's presumably got a bit of a switch on his hands here. I guess you'd say Chris Hughton was more in the Mick McCarthy, grind out those points, stay in the league, might not be pretty, and more of that instruction to a centre half: play it simple, do you defend, and your job's to stop goals going in this net, this end. Whereas Graham Potter, we know from Swansea, centre halves' jobs are to launch attacks, and Swansea centre-halves had massively high passing stats, encouraged to move the ball, and all attacks start from there. So Webster is going to fit in very well there. Obviously, there's less time on the ball, and he's going to be in, you would say, probably a bottom 5 or 6 Premier League team there. Most people think for Brighton. They've dropped a load of cash on him. He's a young English player, should have resale value to them. Given today's transfer market, I guess this is the going rate, even though it seems like an absolutely gargantuan fee. It's just the way it's been going. For Bristol City, I do admire the way they're running their transfer business. You'll have Lloyd Kelly go out for 13 million. And then Jay Da Silva come in for 2 million. And you think, great, pocket the money, develop this player, and the way they've been going, the sell-ons will keep happening. It's probably only Brentford really in the division, and Preston do it well, not necessarily as well as Bristol City. Probably Brentford are the only ones on a level with Bristol City for coming in, developing players, and just keeping that cycle going. So I am impressed with that. I do now worry a little bit. Obviously, Thomas Callas has come in, who's a very good defender, but you would have looked at it and said, look at that partnership now, Webster and Callas. I know they had him on loan last year, now that they own both. But once again, you sell for 24 million, you bring in Callas for 8 million, and I'm sure someone else will now be developed through or purchased. That being said, they've only got 5 days now until the transfer window closes, so they better get this done pretty quickly. All of this, really, the story is, it's good to see English players come through, get those big chances, and you never know if he has a good season in the Premier League, if those metrics are looking exactly the same, whether he can go even higher, either towards the England squad, he's only 24, or even towards one of those top teams, you know, where the fee would then be 30 million, 35 million, 40 million, whatever. Pull a number out of your arse, there you go. So great for Webster. Good work by Bristol City, although I do now worry that they've lost possibly, well, definitely their most saleable asset, possibly their best player right on the eve of the season. I'm sure, though, they'll have had something planned, because this has been rumbling for a long time. So we'll see what Bristol City do now in the next few days. Looks good for Brighton. They've probably overpaid a little, but I guess you have to. And let's hope my team Ipswich get a nice little kickback, even if it goes straight into Marcus Evans' pocket. So let me know what you think. If you're a Brighton fan, How do you think he'll fit into Potter's style? I think that's a thumbs up from me. What do you think about the acquisition on the whole and the fee? How do you think he will adjust and do in the Premier League? If you're a Bristol City fan, again, do you share my view that full of admiration for how they keep generating money, etc., etc., but you do worry at some point, although it's consistently been moving up and up the table to 8th or wherever they got to last season. I think it was 8th, wasn't it? Yeah. Like 18th, 17th, 11th, 8th, I think it's gone for Bristol City. There is a point where you need to hold on to these guys. But when you look at the finances here and you're up against the parachute teams, this really, I guess, is the only way you can compete, to continually do this and keep building up. Let me know what you think in the comments. Follow me on Twitter at Benjamin Bloom. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and you can now follow me on Patreon if you enjoy what I do for it's $5 a month just to help me out. I'll promise I'll only do it until we have YouTube subscribers enough where that ad revenue allows me to do this a little bit more as a viable business. But if you enjoy what I do, go and have a look on patreon.com, Benjamin Bloom, see if you can help me out there. Right, I've got to get to Burton and get this uploaded, so I'll say goodbye. Get your thoughts in the comments. Congratulations, Adam Webster, on a big move. Good luck to you, fella, and I will see you soon on the channel.